All right, so the most obvious place to start with this new design is the main background. So you can see right here that this background image covers everything, and it kind of has a slight beige texture to it. It's a really nice background to kind of help offset the imagery and the white background of the main content. So what it does for us is it offers a really nice contrast between the content and the background. So we know what we want to focus our eyes on. So you come to this website, you come to this picture, and your eyes are immediately focused to this main image and then down into the content of the site. We're not getting lost in the background. We're not getting distracted. In fact, we're really not even getting distracted by the logo up here, which is counterintuitive. But on a site like this, I'm not really shooting for that branding. I'm not trying to pass along my brand. This is really more of just a placeholder for where you're at on the, within my domain. What I'm really concerned about is drawing people's attention down to the recipe itself. Now, on other sites, we may have different requirements for where we want our attention and our focus and how much the brand needs to be highlighted. But in my case, we just need a little marker up here to help my audience know where they are in the site, and then we want to bring their attention into the content with this really nice, stunning image and then really great content right below it. But first things first, we need to take care of this background. So this background is from one of my favorite websites, subtlepatterns.com. And subtlepatterns.com we used, I think last week, maybe even a few weeks ago, to do a quick background image demo. And we're going to use that same technique here, but just with a different image. So I've brought the image into Photoshop, and you can see here that it's not too big, and what this will do is when you tile this on a web page, and what I mean by tile is when you repeat this, as far to the left and as far down as you can, so think, it starts in the upper left-hand corner and tiles down and out, it will look seamless. So when we're looking at this in the back of a web page, like we are here, you can't really tell that there's any seam there. It's seamless. So we'll get a nice result. Our background image will look really good as a result. So what we want to do is we want to save this into our image directory for our site. So a JPEG is fine, and you can download these directly from the, actually we can just leave this as a PNG, which is what it was. You can download these directly from Subtle Patterns. You don't have to bring them into Photoshop. I'm just doing this because it's a little bit easier to show you guys. So let's go into week 7, and we'll make sure we have an images folder. And we'll just rename this bg.png. Okay. So now, if we head back to our site, we should be able to add that image. So let's go images, bg.png as our background, and that should tile in the background for us. And it did. So a couple things to point out here. First of all, you'll notice my relative URL. And what I mean here is that this URL is relative to the root of the site, meaning that if I'm inside of my CSS file, all I have to do to get to this background.png is jump into images and go to background.png. So that's the only path I have to use here. Some of you guys have been turning in homework that has the full path to your file system in these types of URLs. So mine would look something like users jcrdo desktop. Anyway, we want to avoid using URLs like that because what happens is this will work. So on your local computer, this will actually work. So the background image will show up. The problem is that when I go to load this code on my machine, that background image doesn't show up because unless we happen to have the exact same name and the exact same homepage path or user account path on our computers, which I highly doubt, then that image is not going to show up. So we want to make sure we're using relative images when we're dealing with this so that our code can be portable and that when I look at your markup in your CSS, your websites are going to display to me as they are to you, and so there's no confusion there. So first things first, we took care of our background image. So now we have a nice tiled background image on our main web page. You can see if we sneak in here and add a quick background to the container, you can see how that looks. But we don't want to do that. So the next thing we want to look at is this main H1 up here. And the problem is if we just bring up our browser here, I want to replace this family recipes with this logo right here. But in order to do that, I need to, well, first I need to get the logo out of Photoshop, but we're going to have to use a technique called image replacement to actually get this to work in real life. So let's go into Photoshop, and like I said, I'm going to cut up this image for you guys, so you don't have to do this. I'll provide it for you, but you'll also have the dimensions for the image if you want to go ahead and create it yourself. So I'm doing a couple things here. So let's get it to about 100. Okay, so I want my image to be 800 by 100 pixels, and I want the logo to kind of be centered. I want everything to be nice and centered. So there's my marquee. So what we're going to do is we're going to crop this. So let's go image, crop. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my background layer out because I actually don't need that. There we go. I actually don't need that in the end result because I've already placed that background on CSS, and because I'm going to use a transparent PNG for this image, I can just layer it right over the top and the transparency will remain, so it'll look really nice in the end. The other reason I need to make this the full width, because you might say, oh, well, why not crop it here? Your image will be smaller. And that's true, my image will be smaller, but the way I'm going to do this, image replacement, I need to use the full width of the site in order to get my logo centered like that. And that has to do with the way we're positioning the background here. And that will make a little bit more sense when we get into the markup. So before I forget, let's save this. There's animals fighting outside. We'll go save for web, and we want to make sure this is a transparent PNG, 800 by 100. And we're going to save that into the same images directory. So let's save, we'll call this logo.png, just like that. And make sure you undo so we don't lose all of our beautiful design here. All right, so let's jump back out and let's get that family recipes replaced. So first of all, let's at least match our headings. So, well, actually, let's go. I changed my mind. We'll just go Cswd family recipes. So you can, of course, replace that with your last name, or if you want to use my last name, that's okay too. And in our CSS file, find our H1, and let's just, without doing anything else, let's just put a background in here. And again, images and logo.png. So let's see what happens if we do that. Okay, so a couple things you can see. First of all, the image is not, the amount of space we have to cover here is not tall enough to display the entire image. If I were to go height 200 pixels, there we go. Now we can see all of it. That's obviously a little too high. Maybe if we just did 100. There you go. So the other problem here is that you can still see Cswd family recipes. So that's obviously not going to work. So the reason we do image replacement is because I want to have my nice photoshopped logo here, but I don't want to lose all the great stuff that comes with having an H1 tag with my last name in it, because that means that search engines are going to pick that up, and that's going to be a keyword, and we don't want to lose this. We want to make sure this H1 tag is here, but I just only want to display this when Google crawls my site. And that's what that's what's accomplished when you use text replacement, is that the text is still here in the markup. So like, and when we're all said and done here, I'll show you the text is still here in the markup, but what's displayed to my user is just the recipes.crdo.com. So there's no usability and accessibility problems with this, but I still get that look and feel of kind of a customized image or logo. So a few things we need to do to make this work completely. First and foremost, we don't want our image repeating. So we want to make sure we issue a no repeats attribute here. And that will stop it from repeating. And the other thing we want to do is we want to make sure that the space we've allowed here in our height and our width is exactly the same dimensions as our image, and we can check that by just opening up the image, and that's probably not the best solution there, but I believe we did it at 100 by 800, so we should be good. We should be good there. So the next thing we need to do is let's get rid of this padding. Actually, let's just zero the padding out. The reason I do this, I may want to add the padding in later, but I want to make sure that we're utilizing that we're not artificially adding any heights anywhere. I want to make sure it looks good without the padding, and then we can bring it back in later. I'm also going to get rid of this text shadow because we're not even going to be able to see it anyway, so it doesn't matter. So the last thing I want to do is add a text indent call and give it a value of -9,000 pixels. So what this essentially does is this indents the text way off the screen. So it's actually indented way over here, way off to the right of the screen, so far that it will never ever show up. The end result being is our logo kind of nicely in place at the top. And the only other thing we really need to do here is maybe just add a little bit of top padding. Let's actually go with a top margin. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So now, to kind of at least get us a little bit closer to what we're seeing here, let's quarantine off this section right here so we can separate out the header, heading, and logo from the main body of the recipe. So to do that, let's quickly look at our HTML, and we can see that we'll want to use the section with the ID recipes to section that off. So right here, we can go background white. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding a white background to the recipe ID'd section. And if we refresh that, you can see now that we're starting to get a little bit closer to our final site. So in the next video, we're gonna work out a little bit more of this this week, and then we're gonna finish this off in week 8. So we'll see you in the next video.